Hi, I'm James Timberlake. I'm a partner at KieranTimberlake in Philadelphia, a lead fellow, FAIA. The values and culture of our firm have been established for a long, long time. We began the practice in 1984, Steve and Kieran and I, and now we have additional partners, and we're beginning to morph and transition to allow more leaders to come into the office and into the firm going forward as well. The culture has always been one of, I think, trying to nurture generalist architects, in a practice that is robust, but thinking innovatively and inventively, and incorporating their ideas into the outcomes that we like to build. Leaders can be grown. There are natural born leaders as well, and they emerge at different times and places in their careers. And I think a lot of the leadership that we've tried to nurture has been around outcomes, what they're producing, how they're producing it, how they're leading other people, how they're conversing and communicating with our clients, our consultants, the kind of energy that they bring to those efforts. It's not just about design talent, it's not just about technical talent, it's more holistic and more incorporative of all of those aspects. It's something to be earned rather than given, we're constantly in a balance of trying to watch those that are earning it and making sure that they're getting premiated in the right way, but also encouraging those to step out of maybe some safe boundaries to emerge as leaders as well. It begins with talent, and obviously that talent can be not just at the boards or on the computer, but certainly intellectual talent. People who can think, who can inquire, who can be encouraged by ideas that they're going to then also run with and reincorporate what they would like to bring to those particular ideas as well. Qualities that make a successful architect, I think, include being able to communicate. It's not something it's something that's encouraged in the academy, but it's not something that's taught. And it needs to be mentored, and it needs to be encouraged, and it needs to, leaders that are in a firm have to draw those voices out of some folks who are not naturally inclined toward communicating in a particular way. And so I think we work very hard in personnel reviews, in mentoring sessions, in office sessions to afford people the opportunities to develop those qualities of communication and exchange that then help to explain their ideas and also engage clients and consultants and grow to become leaders. In terms of hiring and retention, I think retention comes from it's a two-way street. It's both what the particular staff person or team member is how they're producing and what they're getting out of the firm and what the firm is doing, and whether or not those things align, and they don't always align, but they are things that are always in a constant conversation, in personnel reviews and in mentoring sessions and so forth. I think the other aspect of that, though, in terms of retention, is just having the types of work that encourage people not only to come to the firm, but to stay at the firm. And we've, as a generalist practice, have had a wide range of small to large scale projects, complex to simple projects, urban design, and and other kinds of projects, research, and so forth. So there's a lot of different capacities and places for people to find their place in the firm. Retention-wise, as it pertains to the communication side of things, post-pandemic, I think from our perspective, being in the office together and being able to impart that knowledge that people are hearing anecdotally on a phone call on an open desk next door to you is way better for particularly emerging and younger architects to have access to than when they were siloed. There's always a lot of grass is always greener on the other side, I think, in this equation. Like working from home is just so great, and oh, by the way, I can get all these other things done as well. But at the same time, I think one of the things that we're finding is the development of a young architect and a leader really requires those anecdotal conversations to be that are happening on a daily basis around the office to be out in the open and shared in a way that they weren't getting for a year and a half. Well, actually, I think this emerging generation is doing a pretty good job of it because they've been encouraged all through pre-K through 12 and then undergraduate school to really inquire, ask questions, communicate, engage, draw out the information that they're after. The one thing I'm still seeing, though, whether it's in our practice or whether it's in other practices and even walking around this campus of a convention, is just simply that I think younger people sometimes see someone like myself or even someone like you that they know are out in the public realm, and they become afraid to ask the questions of somebody like that. They're not afraid to ask within their kind of peer group or maybe just slightly outside of their peer group, but don't be afraid to come to the gray hairs in your firm to ask the kinds of questions that you need to get answered. And they might not always have the right answer for you, but it's part of the aggregation of information that you're working with to distill to understand how to move forward. The value and importance of mentorship is very profound. It's something that every firm tries to do their best job in their own way, whether it's a small five-person practice or a 500-person practice. And we have formal constructs at KieranTimberlake, that afford that kind of partnering among experienced staff and younger staff. We've encouraged all of our younger staff to reach out to others, in the firm. There's a point at which that mentorship needs to evolve to others. They can't just kind of become a twin of another person, but need to get the broadest possible perspective on not only the firm, but the practice, but also their role in it. And I think that's the biggest theme I would take away from mentoring, is not just get locked into a buddy or a kind of convenient relationship with an older, experienced architect in the firm, but reach out to the widest possible cross-section of any firm that you're in and evaluate what you're hearing, because in the end, that is how you grow, and that's how you learn, and that's how you respond. For instance, all the partners in KieranTimberlake have been mentors, but I think it's also time. There are also moments and times to step away from that role and say, I'm not available for that right now, because one, you need to reflect on your own role as a mentor, but also it causes and pauses those strong relationships that you're encouraging move or morph to some others in the firm that can help people. And I don't think I don't know that kind of evolution, because mentoring right now is a fairly recent thing over the last 5 to 10 years in architectural practices. I think we're just now getting to maturing that mentoring process. I've had several of these conversations around this convention about generalization versus specialization. And I think the architecture profession is being pushed in a way, and I would say unfortunately, into specialization. Things like, there's the hospital, and it's done often because of markets and because of typologies and so forth, and certainly because of clients. Clients want gray hairs and they want repetition. Unfortunately, I think for clients and the markets, it's the generalist practices that can really ask and explore some of the really more invasive kinds of ideas that they might not have been willing to consider if they would just open up to that kind of inquiry. So balancing that in a firm in terms of skill sets is really important, and we at KieranTimberlake have had to do that. First of all, we have a research group, and within that research group are quite a few both architects but also other professionals that provide bases for deeper inquiry into topics and engaging both our staff and the design teams, into that deeper inquiry. With the evolution of BIM and three-dimensional and four-dimensional, visualizations, data gathering, all of those kinds of things, having specialists to be able to do that, rather than the generalists that might have said, well, I did that in architecture school, is a good thing because you can get deeper, further, faster. But I think we at KieranTimberlake incorporate that into the platform, across the platform, while still becoming a generalist practice, so that we can do the small projects, the urban design projects, the large and small institutional projects, occasionally working on healthcare and so forth and so on. The qualities that we look for in staff, whether they're coming to us with some experience or whether they're coming just out of the academy, really involves being a whole person. I mentioned earlier being able to communicate. I've mentioned, obviously talent is a base. We hire from all the academies across the United States. We have a very diverse office from that point of view, and from other points of view as well. But I think one of the things that we're hiring for is not simply for being able to do a certain task, but being able to do it all. And they have to be able to explain their work in a meaningful way, about how they got to the outcome, about what they think the impacts of that outcome might be, how they might engage in a culture that's quite strong, how long they are willing to engage that culture, because this day and age, there's a lot of movement, and a lot of people come in and stay for a year, stay for 2 years and get registered or whatever, and then move on. We like people to come and stay because we think there's more than one project that they can be involved in, and more than one project that they should have in their oeuvre of work that is done at KieranTimberlake, than just being a kind of a gadfly moving from one place to another. There is an aspect of this generation that's in a hurry, and I think developing a professional takes patience and it takes time, and it's about nurturing. not about just simply you know, ticking off the marks on a resume in order to move forward. It's less about, in some ways, all the resumes we see, you know, they've all got the tick marks, right? The biggest question is how much of that was your responsibility? How much of that did you actually do? How much were you aside somebody else, or, you know, fifth person down on a team? But that good person side of things means that on a daily basis in an office, they're going to get along with a larger group, and what you're building is a team. And that team is both involving specialists and generalists, but it's also involving people who can engage both. It's involving people who aren't afraid to speak up, you know, meaning to authority and leaders, but also being able to work aside with their peer group, but also are able to lead and mentor those that are younger than them as well, or less experienced than them. Those qualities in an increasingly difficult market of talent take longer to find, and it does take some patience to vet through, you know, who you think is going to fit in the culture that you continue to evolve. Well, you know, KieranTimberlake and the research group, embedded research group, has been a leader in developing roast and tally and softwares and tool sets that both we share, but we also use internally in the firm, and obviously share with other practices and the profession. You know, the emerging technologies, you know, whether it's virtual reality, VR, whether it's different ways to draw, you know, and produce both physical models and drawings and visualize. You know, we continue to evolve those kinds of practices. I think, you know, in terms of the AI aspect of it, what is both exciting but also frightening is just simply we all as architects, I think, are at the edge of being replaced, whatever it is, because the technologies that we're seeing, you know, these self-generating models, the kinds of things that end up potentially replacing staff, I'm not sure is a good thing, because one of the things that my generation grew up with was working with a slide rule and a rotating pen and a T-square and a parallel bar, working through the evolution of the digitization in architecture and these tool sets moving forward. And we have no fear of the future, but one of the things that I'd be very concerned about is that we lose the people aspect of architecture while these tool sets become more automated. And I think that's the thing that we're you know, I think we're trying to explore, is how can AI help us be productive and efficient, and do the kinds of things that maybe we don't want to do, but do the kinds of things that would be best guided by a person, not to replace a person.